enjoying getting dinner, but I haven't been summoned yet, so that's nice. And I happened to bring it anyway because actually my friend told me that's what to do, what I should make this video that actually I was talking to Carter about. She's like, if he doesn't want to read it, Nikki, then read it to your YouTube channel because other people want to hear it. And I was like, word, sister, you're right. Like, my sister from another mister. I just need to listen to my... And ironic thing is, like, my closest friends are like, my fucking clients just like pushed all my friends away. I'm really sorry to everybody I have pushed away. I hope you can understand that I'm going through some crazy heavy fucking shit here. It's not making my personal life any better either, so I torture Dustin, and he tortures me. And that's... But he's a good man, and I love him, and I want to make it work. And so I'm hoping that maybe once I close this chapter of my life, that maybe I can move on and I can make things better in my personal relationship. Oh my god, I'm gonna be sobbing. Okay. So I'm gonna do a restart here, and we're gonna do, this is gonna be, I'm gonna read Green in completion from what I have on Sunday, November 14th, the first 4 chapters, and I'm gonna read what I had written for what I remembered from the next chapter that I planned on writing, and I'm not ready to read it yet. She tried to get me to convince me to, and I'm not ready. I'm not ready, so, but I will read what I have, because the most important person in my life that convinced me to read this, that does subscribe to this channel, that if he actually watched these videos, knows how much that upsets me that he hasn't, would know that, but he doesn't watch these. And he doesn't want to read about my mom and the sadness, because I guess I haven't talked about it for 5 years, I guess, but I'm sorry. But, like I said, I'm reading this because I need to know if it's any good or if I'm a shit writer too. Like, should I just stop? Because my whole life has stopped to, like, write. How long does it take to write a novel? I don't know, that I've got, like, 12 pages, and I started doing this, like, less than a week ago. If I could write 10 pages a week, I don't know how long is a novel. I don't know how long is a memoir. There's no certain, like, just read, Nikki. Okay, I'm reading, huh? I can hear her. Just fucking read. Be dragging it out for, I don't know. I'm a fucking rambler. Green, a daughter's quest for justice, a memoir. Just a blank page. That's how this starts. Should I just, like, why do you want to see my face? But I can't see if you can see the page now because of how I've started filming the video. So never mind. You're gonna have to look at my pretty face. All right. And for those of you that have watched the videos and have, like, heard my preface, I've made edits, like, every time I make edits. So it'll be a little different or massively different, or it's never going to be the same until I actually turn it into a publisher and say, here, are you going to publish this, please? Just a blank page. That's how this starts. My story, my life with a blank page. Ironic how something so important, which is carried with it such relevance and meaning, starts nowhere until it starts here. This path I followed and walked for the better part of my entire life starts with just a blank page and a blinking cursor. So much to say and so much to tell, but not having the slightest inclination on where to start. Ironic, isn't it, to be at an utter loss for words on a story you already know the plot to, as you've already lived it, as it's my life. It's just another torment in my already endless entry of grievances I have against this world and this life, I guess. But then, who else am I to blame? I could think of someone, a name, a person, an individual, to whom my list of grievances is addressed, all boiling down to one trusted figure disguised as a loving father and husband, one man to whom I can with complete confidence say ruin not only my life, but a whole family. In a single moment, one man managed to destroy the entire Waslishan family, at least 2 generations fast approaching 3. As it's been 28 years now, 28 very long years since I was ripped from my childhood to an unknown world of adulthood in the heat of an Arizona summer night in '93, my entire life changed. It was a Thursday night, July 8th, 1993. I went to bed around 11 p.m. It was summer. An exuberant, effervescent, vivacious 10-year-old girl. It's me to a T. With a loving mother, a little sister, and a stepfather, a seemingly happy family. I went to bed like I did every other night for the previous 10 years of my life. I gave my mom a hug and a kiss. I told her I loved her. She asked me if I brushed my teeth. I lied like I did every night, and I went to bed. Never thinking in a million years that that would be the last time I'd hear her voice or feel her touch. Tell her I loved her. Those moments have replayed in my head over and over now for 3 decades. 2.5 hours later, I would be stirred from my slumber by a flashlight and a Sedona Police Department deputy who quickly instructed me to get up. Confused and groggy, I did as I was told. It was when we left my room and rounded the corner, I knew my life had changed. Together we left my room, never thinking it at the time that it would be the last images I'd see not only of my room, but the inside of my house. Even though I had just been unexpectedly woken, my childish curiosity had me instantly awake and aware, as the deputy and I rounded the corner and turned right out of the kitchen into the living room. With the deputy on my immediate left, I could see it was very bright. As if it was Christmas, the house was lit up. But it was July, and the officers in the living room weren't Santa Claus and his merry elves. The chandelier in the front breakfast nook by the front door was on. It was the first thing I saw and noted as odd in my head. Odd for several reasons. Because it being obnoxiously bright, we barely used it, this particular chandelier, as the breakfast nook wasn't used for eating. It was actually a play area with toys and books and a little kid's kitchen set. I believe there was a little kid's table and chairs there as well. This was my mom's equivalent of our little home play library, right there behind the front entry of the front door under the big chandelier. So that chandelier was hardly ever used because that area was a kid's area. That was the first thing I noted as weird. Plus the great big bright light was off when I went to bed, as were most of the kitchen lights, and now they were on. I just remember after coming out of my dark room being squinty-eyed because it was just so bright. The next thing I saw was the officer who was escorting me was not the only one in our home. From what I can remember, there were at least 2 more officers in my living room at the time I was escorted from my room. I remember seeing these officers standing. I remember just a lot of people and a lot of standing and talking. There was the officer standing and walking next to me and at least 2 more officers standing by the couch. And that's when I saw Russell. He was sitting on the couch. His head was in his hands. I remember he was talking, but it was very quick and fast, and I couldn't pick up exactly what was being said. But being a 10-year-old, I knew that it was bad. It was very bad. Where was my mom? Why were police all over my house? Why was Russell on the couch with his head in his hands? Why did he sound so upset, speaking almost like he was speaking Italian, which he was fluent? I don't know. The final walk from my home happened so fast. All the while, the deputy did his best to shield my 10-year-old eyes from seeing what was unfolding in that living room. But I saw enough to know. And I went to bed that night happy with the mother that loved me. I awoke to discover that my mother was dead in her bedroom. This is the story of a woman who loved her children but loved the wrong man. This is the story of a daughter that refuses to let her mother go. This is the story of my investigation behind my mother's cold case murder. My name is Nikki Lee Wassewishin, and this is the story of my life. Chapter 1, present, 2021, Phoenix, Arizona. Green, because it's the color of weed and money, in quotes. And then we start here. No big opening, no remarkable or memorable one-liners. Were you expecting something fancy and intellectual? Perhaps maybe some Charles Dickens? I could totally pull a Salinger and plagiarize some David Copperfield. Would changing it to the second line maybe make my opening more thrilling and less like stealing than J.D. Salinger's and the original, and every other writer that's taken the easy route and stolen Little Charlie's opener for themselves. Anybody that's a reader would get that David Copperfield reference and Charles Dickens. Anyway, I was being clever. I am being clever. Stop commentating while you're reading. To begin my life with the beginning of my life, I record that I was born. What a boring opener and just so cliche, and may I say completely dated, but of course it's Dickens, or I guess I could say a play on Dickens and Salinger. Was that the way to grab your mid-19th century reader's attention, with sheer simplicity? Regardless, I know if my mom had her hand at this, she'd say, Nikki, don't think too hard, write what you know. So how do I grab a 21st century reader's attention while writing what I know? Looking at the best opening paragraph list of all time, and it's just an endless category of the best of the best of the best of 19th century writers. Twain, Melville, Austen, Eliot. With a lineup like that, however do you go wrong? With that being said, I'll stick with the greats. Well, there's that and my mom's continued reminder to follow their lead with just keep it simple. My mother would probably start her autobiography with a simple, silly, stupid statement. Remember my mom was only 20 when she had me and 32 when she passed, so I grew up with the epitome of a cool mom. There are several that come to mind that I remember her saying regularly with humor to those friends around her. Get your dick beaters off me. Speak when spoken to. Not my personal favorite, as that one always seemed to be aimed my way, but one I'll never forget. One simple yet humorous statement that I'll always remember, a fragment of memory never to be forgotten because it showcased to me for the first time that my mom was fucking cool. I was probably 5 or 6 at the time, and one of her friends asked her a question. Green, because it's the color of weed and money, her favorite color, so I'll start there. And right here, where I sit on the couch on this November 9th on 2021 in my living room with only the silence and the faint wheezing of my ever-faithful snoring companions. Their combined chorus gives me the perfect atmosphere to construct for you a clear and concise lens on which to view my tapestry of memories. I don't even know how to classify this assortment of words you now find yourself reading, or me reading. An autobiography, by definition, an autobiography is an account of a person's life written by that person. No, that doesn't feel right, as this is written by myself, yes. In the first person, yes. And yes, it does involve my life, but by no means is this a compilation, an autobiography about myself in any definition of the words. I see that now. No, an autobiography this isn't, but a memoir, because I kept calling it my autobiography. But it's not. But a memoir, once I looked up the definition, just didn't feel right. So I had to put it out there. A memoir would definitely be a better way to classify this document. A memoir has several meanings and can be used in a variety of ways, depending on its usage in the form of a sentence. A memoir is a noun, same as autobiography, and borders on being essentially one and the same. A historical account or biography written from a person's knowledge or special sources doesn't really fit my case. Or a memoir is an autobiography or a written account of one's memory of certain events or people. Now the latter is a more appropriate way to exhibit the story of my mother's life. Because really, that's who these pages are about. Stephanie Marie Wassilishin, not myself. So an autobiography, this definitely is not. But a memoir, a written account of one's memory of certain events or people, I'd say yes. A memoir this is. This shall be a memoir on my childhood with my mother and the subsequent 3 decades that preceded that much coveted decade I had with her. A memoir to never lose the hope that the world would come to know the truth, so my mother's soul can finally rest in peace with the knowledge that her name is cleared from any kind of false theory of suicide. So yes, a written account this is of how a daughter won't let her mother go, a daughter that wants the world to know that Stacy did not take her own life, but it was in fact taken from her. No amount of lies or lackluster police work will ever convince me truly that indeed she pulled the trigger that night with the complete intention of killing not only herself, but her supposed lover as well in a murder-suicide, a notion that would in turn leave her 2 children alone to wake up the next morning to find their parents shot to death. Does that sound like a logical story to you? Well, that's the story that Russell Bennett Peterson and the Sedona Police Department, the Yavapai County District Attorney's Office, and the Red Rock News are convinced on shoving down my throat. I'm sorry, but I'm just not swallowing that bullshit. Instead, I thought I'd tell my memoir. How about the truth? The truth behind my investigation, but then this isn't really my story. It's my mother's story. I'm just her daughter, her last voice left here on earth to speak for her, and speak I will. Green, because green was my mother's favorite color. And that's the intro, the preface, and the first chapter read with edits. Fresh on Sunday, November 14th, 2021.